Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MEssY diSCipLes. Thanks again for joining us today. We hope that you have been enjoying our Halloween series. The video that we just posted before this about witches was quite interesting. We encourage you, if you haven't watched it yet, please watch it, and it's certainly worthy of a lot of conversation. There's a lot of interesting questions that Pastor Bob left hanging there, so we'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts about that video. And we've got another really interesting video here topic to talk to you about to add to our Halloween series today. And when Pastor Bob and I were talking about topics that we wanted to do this season that somehow tie to Halloween and All Saints Day, Pastor Bob kind of blew my mind with the topics that he was bringing up. And today we're going to discuss The Walking Dead. It's not something that you typically hear a pastor say, and it's certainly not something that you expect there to be any tie to Christianity or to the Bible. So I'm really intrigued today, Pastor Bob. How did you come across this topic, and why is it important for us to talk about today?
Well, I think that if you know me, you know I hate zombies. It's actually my least favorite category of literature and fantasy fiction. And I think it was because I read a book years back and there were zombies in it. I didn't know it, but it ended up being a zombie book. And I think when I was younger or before I had read that book, I could handle zombies because, it's just gross, and okay, there you go. It's gross. But when I read it in a book, something happens when I read, it goes into my mind and I have to imagine it. And that experience was actually even more frightening. And so I actually began to detest zombie culture. But the problem is all the best shows that people say are the best shows that were coming out were zombie shows, Z and The Walking Dead. And what I noticed in watching those, even though I hate zombie culture, what I noticed in those was something that was really disturbing to me. What I noticed was that zombies always gathered in places where people are supposed to be the most human to each other. So zombies were always in hospitals, and they were always in grocery stores, and they were always in parks, and they were always in homes. There weren't zombies out in the middle of nowhere, but they were always present where people are supposed to be the most human, and that's where the monsters were. And I thought that's an interesting comment on society, is the Walking Dead is us. I think if you've seen the series, is that they realize that's the comment. And so I think it's society, their interest in zombie culture is also their way of commenting on the lack of humanity that we're seeing around us. Like, we're not treating each other well anymore, and we're not living the human experience anymore. We're all kind of sticking our heads in our phones and kind of stumbling around. Even when we're driving, we're sticking our heads in our phones when we should be paying attention to the community around us. And so that's how I got interested in the topic. What do you think?
I think it's pretty spot on here. You're definitely ringing a bell with me because I also feel this exact way. I felt this way since I was young, and I started to observe things. I like what you just said here that I didn't really ever put into context about how the depictions of zombies tend to be gathering in places where humans are supposed to be the most human together. It's a very, very poignant point to bring up because it's spot on. It's spot on. Right? So continue. I want to hear more.
So that's what makes it so horrifying, is that in these places where we're supposed to be most human, we have lost all of our humanity, and we become these mindless consumers. And I think that that's kind of rough. So how do you come back from that? How do you redeem culture? How do you stop being a zombie? And I thought of this part of the book of Ezekiel. Been doing a lot of work in the book of Ezekiel recently, and it's only 14 verses. So if the last time I kept on reading and you were like, when is he going to stop reading? This one's only 14 verses long. And this is a vision that God gave to the prophet Ezekiel about Israel and about how they had become a valley of corpses. I mean, they were all alive, but he was speaking metaphorically in a vision to try and get them to say, hey, y'all are dead on the inside. And you need to wake up and come to life. But is it going to be a zombie apocalypse, or is it going to be something else? And so I'd like to read Ezekiel 37, first 14 verses. You ready?
Yes, go for it.
All right. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out in the spirit of the Lord and set me down in the middle of the valley. The valley, it was full of bones, and he led me around among them, and behold, there were very many bones on the surface of the valley, and behold, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, Oh Lord, God, only you know. And then he said to me, Well, prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord God to these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. And I will lay sinews upon you, and will cause flesh to come upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Lord. And so I did, Ezekiel says, so I did just that. I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was a sound, and behold, it was a rattling. And the bones came together, bone to its bone. And I looked, and behold, there were sinews on them, and flesh had come upon them, and skin had covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of man, and say to the breath, Thus says the Lord God, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these slain, that they may live. And so I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an exceedingly great army. And so here you have God granting a vision to Ezekiel of what his people are like. And his people are dead in their sins and trespasses. They're a valley full of bones. And then God says, can they live? I don't know about you, but sometimes I think that God asks questions that are so obvious, it's almost riddling. It's like, it's on you, buddy. only you know what can happen with these bones. He says, do this, tell flesh to come on them, tell skin to come on them, sinews, veins, all the fleshy stuff. Have skin grow on them, and then have breath enter them, and see what will happen. And Ezekiel knows better than to argue with God. And so he prophesies every Gray's Anatomy detail onto these bones. And there's a moment when they're all still just a bunch of corpses, and there's no breath in them. And breath in Hebrew means life. It means spirit. It's this. All right. And so God says they need the spirit. They need life. They need breath. And then they go from being corpses to standing on their feet and being people again. People again. They go from being dead to being his people again. And I think one of the things that's cool is that God is always a God who goes from death to resurrection. And we see that in the ministry in the Old Testament, like with Elijah and Elisha. We see that in Ezekiel. We see that in the book of Job. We see it in the ministry of Jesus with Lazarus and the widow of Nain's son. But more specifically, we see it in Jesus. Jesus died and rose again, but he wasn't a zombie. And I think that this is likely where the Bible has a better point. The better point that the Bible has is that going from death to life has the purpose of keeping you the people of God. And it's not to turn you into some monster, whose singular focus is consumption, but to be a people. Not to lose your humanity, but to gain the fullness of your humanity in the person of Jesus. You're going to live forever. It doesn't mean that eternal life is going to be a zombie apocalypse. It means that God has designed us to be a human community forever. And that's more than just a brain thing. It's a person thing. And God's very interested in that. What do you think?
Well, I'm trying to figure out here where there seem to be some blurred lines between actual and metaphorical, and so I'm trying to draw the comparisons, or at least be able to define where they start and where they end. I think I understand the metaphor. I think I understand all of the metaphor here, and I think that the metaphor is, for me, the easiest to understand. But what I guess my first question to you is in the Bible, the story that you just read, is that metaphorical, or did that physically happen? Was it written in terms of it literally being bones and him saying, okay, I am going to physically raise these people? Because in the beginning, before you read it, you also mentioned that this happened in a time where Israel was, down and out, and they had a lot of, dead behind the eyes or dead inside kind of people, which, I mean, mimics today and what we see going on in today, almost exactly, if not more so. So I guess my first question is, was that story literal or was it figurative? I guess start there for me.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So in Ezekiel, he's seeing this vision as a metaphor for the people then that would literally be the case in the end of time with Jesus. So right now for them, it's literal, or right now for them, it's metaphorical. God wants his people to be a living people, a human community.
Okay, so when he's saying prophecy, put the flesh on them, he's saying start giving them what they need through the preaching, start telling them more about me so that they can start to come back to life. But he's using the body as a metaphor in that regard. And then, even though, and here's the interesting part that I guess, is the next point that I'll make, that I'll ask you on is, even after all of that prophesying brings them to a physical form, there still is not breath, there still is not life in them. And so then I'm guessing that next part, even though this is in the Old Testament, what is that getting over the hurdle then? What is that point of inflection where they become human again? What is that?
So I think that for his original audience, they're saying, you're right, you could have all of this fleshy stuff and still not be alive if you don't have the Spirit from the Lord. And that's what Ezekiel is trying to get his original audience to embrace. It's like, but in order to be a real person, you have to have the Spirit of God in you. And that's how you live. Now, for Ezekiel, he is also aware that there's some future day and time where this won't be just a metaphor. Like in a future day and time, there will be a resurrection of all the dead in a very literal way, not metaphoric. And we see that because of Jesus, and Jesus who died literally and resurrected literally. But in that moment, it won't be the Walking Dead and it won't be a zombie apocalypse. It will be true humanity, true community, and it will be a sight to behold. And so Ezekiel,
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, continue. Finish what you're saying. So then
Ezekiel has two things in mind. He has what it means for them right now, metaphorically, and what he saw it meant in Jesus, literally, which means that it will also be literally true for everybody because of what Jesus did.
So I guess I'm what I'm hearing, or what I'm feeling as I'm listening to you, is that the idea of a zombie, which was explained in the Bible a long time ago, the concept of someone who is living but dead, right, in that order, I'm going to say, right, living but dead,
very well
is
said.
In its essence a metaphor. However, in our day and age now, it has been more actualized and tried to bring into a physical by the depictions of these literal senses of these monsters that are crawling out of the graves and becoming people or becoming alive again, in some decrepit or decayed form, so that they can prey on the living and to attack. But it's all metaphor, and that's right.
And in the world today, the only way we can imagine someone going from death to life, the only way we can imagine that and put it in literature and movies and art is to do it apart from Christ, which is to make monsters. So the only way we can bring people from death to life in our imaginations is if something went horribly, horribly wrong, and it turns into monsters.
Well, it has.
Yeah.
It has gone horribly, horribly wrong, and
Yeah.
have turned into monsters. And I think we
Yeah.
continue to see more and more of them as they take something that is originally metaphoric and turn it into something actual. And that, I think, is the most interesting part of this, and what you've said to me, and the most interesting part of this story is God using this metaphor for what later will be something that actually does happen in Jesus. And I'm guessing that Ezekiel knew that because he was a prophet and was able to see or foresee that happening. You didn't say it, but I think that that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But how it applies to the Halloween series here today, and how people can take something, out of this and into their real lives, is to be able to understand, maybe, and correct me if I'm off base here, but to be able to understand that what we are, the images and the imagery that we are getting today in today's world with zombies is really and truly a very direct comparison to the Bible and what God literally says exists. And that is that, a zombie is really someone that does not have the breath of God in them. Is that an accurate depiction of what you said there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a really bad way to comment on a beautiful thing that God's gonna do. Even if I die, I will live forever, because I have hope in Jesus, and we make fun of it with zombies, or we try and recreate it in our mind with zombies. And I just want to encourage people that if you're going to get in touch with the Bible's meaning, don't do it with The Walking Dead.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, I know you meant it lightheartedly there, but it's funny because there are so many people that attach themselves to this undead kind of zombie-esque imagery, and it's so popular. I mean, it's so popular in video games. It's so popular in pop culture. It has become, a very prevalent theme, especially around this time of year, but just in general. But it's so, apropos, it's so spot on. And I see, as I get older, and I continue to see what society is morphing into, it seems almost like people glorify being in that state. And it seems to be it's such a confusion, in my opinion, that people don't understand that being in that state is not what you should be going after. You should not be glorifying it per se. You should not be making a idolization of it, or commending it to be this or wishing it to be. I don't know the exact words I'm trying to say. Help me out here if one comes to mind. But it is really truly probably the most of all of the imagery that I've seen around Halloween and around this time of year, probably the most appropriate for what I see happening to a majority of people in the world. Is they are zombies because they lack that light of God, that light of Jesus in them, and they are walking dead. They are walking around dead. And I've said it before in stuff that we've talked about, and some of the, I've used the term, dead behind the eyes. I think it all kind of, talks about the same thing, where there is no light, no spark, no knowledge, no peace, no hope, no connection with God. And it's amazing that it comes across in this way.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said. If I'm going to glory in something, I'm not going to glory in the distortion of it. If I'm going to glory in something, it's not going to be in the corruption of it.
But in that glorification, Pastor Bob, it proves its own point. That people miss the point. And that's the thing that's interesting to me, is that by the glorification of it, it in of itself misses the point. And that shows how the word ignorant comes to mind, but I don't think that's really what I mean to say. No, but I'm trying to say, uninformed, they don't know what they don't know. Yeah. And that, I think, is why it's so important, even more so, for people to get to know Jesus and get to know and understand what the stories of Jesus are all about, and the purpose of God sending Jesus to earth physically, because he saw the same thing going on in Israel in this story, however many years. How many years ago was that, Pastor Bob, give or take?
This story, 2,700 years ago.
Okay, so, millennia ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
same thing's happening now. And so God said, listen, y'all aren't getting it. Okay, I'm giving it to Ezekiel. Ezekiel, go and prophesize and go and help these people to breathe life back into them through Jesus. But maybe it was easier then because there were less people on the planet. I don't know, but it was happening back then, and it's happening now. And it's even more prevalent now because back then they didn't have media where they can, show a lot of people one thing at the same time. So it had a lot more effort to try to get those things around than you'd have nowadays. And it's still relevant and it's still prevalent. It's very interesting stuff, Pastor Bob. Great topic, great choice of topics here. This one really hits home. I think that you as the audience and the listener here today, I'm sure you've got a lot of stuff swimming around in your head about this topic. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. We'd love to hear what your iterations are or what you view or see going on today that would be appropriate in connecting to what Pastor Bob just told us. So we encourage you, please leave those comments below. Let us talk about them. Please get some conversation started on this. This is a really great topic. We'd love to hear more and more about this. We'd love to get you guys involved in what this means to you. And we wish you a great season. Please don't forget to celebrate All Saints Day. Don't forget to really understand what the season is about. If you really want to know what's going on in this season according to Christianity, I massively encourage you to go and watch our first video where Pastor Bob gives an unbelievably interesting history of Halloween and All Saints Day. It's still to this day one of my favorite videos that we've ever done. I think you do a masterful job of
you were making
telling
the
that story.
conversation good. Yeah.
Yeah. But your knowledge and depth of knowledge of this subject and the history of this subject is really enlightening for people that are looking for something more than just dressing up in a costume and going knocking on doors, trick-or-treating. It's a really good history of how we got here, and in a lot of ways how it got blasphemized and how it got contorted into what it is today. And in knowing those things in that video can really enrich the videos that we're posting this year about this topic. So I certainly encourage everybody to go back and watch that first Halloween series video. Pastor Bob, take us out. Tell us a little bit, close it up for us, and bring us home.
These are both, conversation starter videos, part of our Halloween series. Please do check out the Halloween series, and don't forget to hit subscribe so that way you're subscribed to our channel, and hit notifications so you can see when new videos come out, because these are a lot of fun. Keep the conversation going in the comments. And Gio, thanks for always having a great back and forth, good questions. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Pastor Bob, and thank you all for watching. We hope to see you soon.
Thanks for watching today. It's been a great conversation. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so go ahead and click subscribe. And if you hit the notification bar, it'll let you know when new videos are coming out, which is really important because all of our videos are about new and current events that are happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me via email. It's great to have you a part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Bye.